Ok, allora buonasera. Iniziamo questa masterclass di Confagricoltura sulle specialità
This is a
italiane.
masterclass hosted by CONFAGRICOLTURA on Italy's special wine product, and we're connected with you, Milan, as well as the people in Houston.
Quindi un saluto anche
A big hello to our
Sara di Houston.
audience in Houston.
Abbiamo anche i produttori, salve.
And we also have the producers with us.
C'è l'altra sala. Allora metto un po' più qua così vedo. Ok. La masterclass appunto di Confagricoltura.
Again, this class will be held by CONFAGRICOLTURA. We'll get to know several wines made from indigenous grape varieties, typical of Italy, and we'll analyze them from north to south. In a number of tours,
Quindi iniziamo
discovery tours. Let's start immediately with our wines.
primo vino
The first wine is by Cantina dell'Asta.
Lambrusco
We'll be tasting a Lambrusco,
metodo Charmat
a Terre di Torre Chiara. Torre Chiara is the name of the castle
del territorio dell'azienda
in the area where the winery is based.
strutturata intorno
And the winery
più antiche del castello
surrounds one of the most ancient towers.
L'azienda e dovremmo avere comunque collegato
And with us should be a representative of Cantina dell'Asta. He'll be the person to tell us more about this Lambrusco.
scusami
Again, the winery is named dell'Asta. We are the most ancient winery in Parma. We were established in 1910. The castle is the one that made it possible for the winery to exist because everybody working in at the winery used to live in the castle. It's called the Dalla Corte because it's the courtyard of the castle. And this winery has always continued the history and culture behind the castle and everything that has happened in the past decades. Thank you for clarifying this. This will help us also clarify the names of both the winery and the wine. Okay, I'll show a picture. This is the castle of Torre Chiara.
Ok, perfetto, è andata a fuoco. Questo è il castello.
This is the castle of Torre Chiara. And we are close to the castle. We are on the heights near the castle of Torre Chiara, and we also have a view of the valley and the vineyards. It's a beautiful place. We also have a B&B resort, and so we invite everybody to pay a visit. So that is a clarification of both the name and your position and situation. I would like to mention that our sites are located at between 250 and 400 meters above sea level. We have a southeast by east orientation. And our valley in our valley, the merino wind blows, so the seaside wind comes and blows, and that ensures the health of our grapes and also imparts a very special taste to our wine. And actually, you can, and it's the same as is so beneficial for the prosciutto. Because ours is the area of the prosciutto di Parma, so both the ham and wine share this characteristic. The cured meats of Emilia and Parma are well known, and Lambrusco is the wine par excellence of Emilia-Romagna and Parma, and it goes very well with all the fat cured meats that we manufacture in the area, and it's co-engineered. So This is a Lambrusco IGP or PGI. It's a semi-sparkling wine made using a Sharma approach.
Di Lambrusco. Benissimo, se
in the area there are various Lambruscos, the Parma style Lambrusco. Our neighbors have the Modenese, Reggiano, Mantovano, and so these are minor differences from terroir to terroir that translate into differences in the taste. And our Lambrusco is the maestri, and it's processed differently from that of their neighbors. So Lambrusco maestri. Anything else that we might want to know, or can we move on with the tasting? Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you for participating. And we'll allow your glass to speak for you now. Thank you very much. Now, Lambrusco Emilia IGP from Cantina dell'Asta. It's a fizzy Lambrusco. It's a semi-sparkling wine, Lambrusco Maestri. On the nose, you immediately detect small red fruit like cherries, strawberries. And when you taste it, it is slightly bubbly.
Molto delicato, tannino leggero.
Very delicate, light tannins.
Non ci viene difficile immaginare.
It's not hard to imagine the pairing that the wineries represent with cured meats and this very light bubble to cleanse the mouth from the fat of the cured meats. Okay, nice beginning. Let's continue. We have a Franciacorta Brut Rosé. The second is a Brut Rosé. Don't worry. To present Monzio Compagnoni of Franciacorta, we have Stefano, who's with us now. He's a winemaker at Monzio Compagnoni. He'll introduce the company. It's a Franciacorta, not far, just around the corner from Milan. So he's here because he didn't come from far away. So I'll hand you the microphone. You can say something about the winery, about your Franciacorta. And we need to identify wine very clearly also for the benefit to our friends in Houston. Good evening, my name is Stefano Graffi, and I'm the resident winemaker of Monzio Compagnoni. We've been in Franciacorta ever since 1985, and we produce the metodo classico that has made Franciacorta famous in Italy and the world over. The company has an estate of 22 hectares, only Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. We have no Pinot Bianco or Herbamat, which are allowed in the blend of Franciacorta by the rulebook. We believe in the interest of Pinot Noir in Italy. We have 7 SKUs that are only Pinot. And then Pinot Nero is used in every sparkling wine, with the exception of Satin. This is a Rosé 2018, or May 2020, and it has spent 6 months on the tip and with the liquor. And the balance that was altered during the disgorging, the is recreated now. So it's the right time to taste it. 80% Pinot Noir, Nero, and 20 to 30%, depending on the year, is vinified as a red wine, while the rest is vinified as a white. We don't like to do macerations on the entire batch of Pinot Nero because the extraction of herbaceous, bitter, tannic components would be excessive in the bottle. So we prefer to separate the vinifications. 100% stainless steel. We do not use oak containers for the base wines, and the dosage is 5 grams, so not and not too little at the same time. The smoothness, roundness, and residual sugar are very important. It's a brut with 5 grams of residual sugar. And Chardonnay, 80% Pinot Noir, and the rest is Chardonnay. The grapes that as you said, are part of our production. It's a Metodo Classico bottle fermented wine, 36 months, actually 37, accurate. And the winemaker is here to provide all the most accurate details. Is more than the sugar, residual sugar is more than enough because we're to impart roundness and smoothness to the base before blending them and bottling with continuous batonnage and keeping the wines always moving and with some solids in them and trying to keep the sugar levels low. The dégorgement when you add the sugar, because adding sugar on top of sugar would make the wine cloying. So their kind of work starting from the vineyard and then later on at the winery with continuous batonnage operations. The idea is that our winemaking activity be as little invasive as possible, so you're not adopting an conventional approach. Out of the 22 hectares that we are cultivating, 16 are in the municipality of Adro, the center of the Franciacorta, within a short distance from Lake Leo, and that is very helpful because our vineyards do not develop molds on the bunches because the winds from the lake are very helpful, and the health of the grapes is something that characterizes our productions, and we've hardly ever seen any problems. And in terms of the date of harvest, it's around mid-August. Is it for both grapes? Yes. Pinot Nero is ripening a few days earlier. So if we start on the 15th of August with Pinot Nero, Chardonnay will be harvested on the 18th to the 20th. So this year was very special in that we started on the 3rd of August because it was very warm, very hot, I would say. We all know it's been very hot for us and for people harvesting the grapes in Franciacorta. In the Franciacorta region, you cannot the harvesting of so we hand pick everything, and it was very hard because of the harvestings. So thank you very much, Stefano, and let's taste the wine. See what it is like. The nose has, you have some very subtle sensations that are immediately reminiscent of a Pinot Noir. Very elegant, fruit, floral. As you taste it, you recognize the effect of the lees with small, delicate pastries and almond paste. It's very pleasant to the palate and very round, and you can detect the smoothness that Stefano announced that doesn't come from the sugar. This is just contains 5 grams per liter of residual sugar. So it's close to being very dry. So fine and persistent and very delicate in terms of bead. This is the Franciacorta Rosé. 80% Pinot Noir and 20% Chardonnay. Again. Very well, let's move on. We have lots of glasses that we have to go through. The next winery is I Magredi. They're producing their Pinot Grigio. It's the area of Friuli DOC Grave. Online is Elena Veronelli, who will introduce the winery. I Magredi means something special to the area. Magredi stands for in a definition of the sandy and pebbly soil area. But here you are. Over to you.
Fate pure la vostra introduzione dell'azienda e poi passiamo appunto alla degustazione.
And then we'll move on to the tasting of your Pinot. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good evening, everyone. Elena and Massimiliano here. We're working together. I am the sales manager, and Massimiliano is a sales engineer. Now, the Magretti, as you can tell from the pictures, ours is a company that is family run. It was established in 1968 with Otello Tombacco, the founder. Now, he is operating the winery. As the speaker moderator was saying, I Magretti is in reference to the meager or the lean soil, which is pebbly and rich in gravel of origin. We have three. After the glaciation, this very lean soil and dry soil came into being. It is very interesting for the grapes because it imparts a lot of weightiness and minerality. We have approximately 60 hectares that are cultivated, and then we vinify our varietals. Pinot Grigio is an international varietal that is very much in demand, especially abroad. Because as we were pointing out in the previous masterclass, it has found its own niche, and it has a very clear-cut and recognizable style. So it's certainly a choice, and I hope our friends from Houston will also appreciate your Pinot Grigio, one of the international varietals that grow here, and it's become one of the Italian flagships abroad. A flagship wine, yes, exactly. And as you can see, behind us is a picture of our circular vineyard where we organize also many events. It's an area we take great pride in. And we were the first in Italy to plant one in Italy in 2008. And that's all. And I'll leave the floor to Massimiliano. And the round vineyard is in reference to the logo. Now, at the end of the video, the logo was at the center of this picture of your circular vineyard, which is very romantic, by the way, and a very distinct trait. These beautiful videos just took us part of Friuli and to your vineyards. Yes, exactly. We are in the central part of Friuli, in the province of Pordenone. Let me just spend a couple quickly about vinification, just to have an idea. So fundamentally, our idea is to make very sinful wines, wines with a very rich nose. And this is possible thanks to our terroir, characterized by the alluvial conoid with soils of materials transported to the valley bottom from the pre-alpine pine foothill, the and the major daytime-nighttime temperature differentials also cause the synthesis of aromatics to be very rich with aromatics that benefit a lot, just like our aromatic Traminer. And so in the Pinot Grigio, we have a fresh aromas, slightly balsamic, and a light mineralic. Our ABV is 12.5%, and we don't go high in terms of alcohol content because our terroir will not do that to the wines. And the aromatic spectrum is complex and broad and wide. I think that all for us on our side will allow you to taste the wine. So we'll allow the wine for itself. Thank you very much for your participation, and have a nice evening. Okay, let's move on to our third class, Pinot Grigio, Friuli di Ostrave. Immediately on the nose, you can detect these very floral aromas, fruity aromas, white fruit like apples, pears, and crunchy fruit, crisp fruit, even green fruit, and floral notes of white flowers. As you taste it, it certainly is a wine that is already ready for drinking with a nice acidity. It is meant to be younger with a nice freshness, very drinkable, and it works well. Imperatives and opportunities of pairings with light meals such as fish dishes. It could work well on a sushi, I think. Someone is nodding. Someone is nodding. I see. So a very nice version, a very nice interpretation of Pinot Grigio from Friuli. But because we still have lots of glasses, we need to make progress. But there's a question from Houston for the Magari winery. They make an orange wine, don't they? I don't think so.
No, guardi, allora
No.
noi facciamo una vinificazione, diciamo così,
We
tradizionale, non facciamo la macerazione.
carry out traditional vinifications. We do not do skin contact detectors, so the color is straw yellow. So our wine is generally a straw yellow color. Now, in general, in your lineup of wines, there are no orange wines or wines that take long macerations. No, I confirm we don't have it in our range. Thank you.
Ok, altro?
Anything?
Vado avanti.
Okay, move on.
Andiamo avanti con Tenimenti
And
Grieco.
so we continue with Tenimenti Grieco. Going to Molise will be two wines from Tenimenti Grieco, and we'll allow them to speak also of their next one, which is the first red in this flight, the Tintilla of Molise. So we have Falanghina of Molise, Passo alle Tremiti DOC Molise, which is the one we're tasting now. And then Tenimenti Greco again, the 200 meters, 200 metri, the Tintilla of Molise, which is the red poured already. So we'll ask them to speak about both. The winery and the area are representative of Molise. Hi, welcome. Okay, please give us an introduction about the company and tell us more about both Falanghina and Tintilla, so that when we the wines, I already have the full picture. Of course. Good evening, Stefania, and thank you for inviting us here. And good morning to all our friends in Houston. And thanks a lot for being here, for being with us. My name is Irene Parolin, and I am here to represent the Tenimenti Grieco. It is a wine based in Molise. We own 8 hectares of vineyards that overlook the sea, the Adriatic coast. So when I talk about the Tenimenti Grieco, I like to show this picture that is very tale. It tells a lot more than 1,000 words. These are the vineyards by the sea. We have 85 hectares of vineyards that the owner of our winery, Antonio Greco, an entrepreneur here in Molise, bought in 2013. So ours is a young and dynamic winery that maybe cannot boast long traditions like many marvelous Italian wineries, but that has made its youth and freshness its strength, has turned it into strength. Another strength is that we have a winemaker who's a woman whose gentle touch, soft touch, so to speak, is clearly reflected in the wines we produce. Today, we produce approximately 400,000 bottles every year, and the vineyards of our estate cover 85 hectares. Just a couple of words now on our wine style and approach and where we are located. The second smallest region in Italy after the Aosta Valley. And it is regarded as a melting pot almost, because initially it was united to the Abruzzi. Abruzzi and Molise were one region, but that has led to a blend of gastronomic and viticultural traditions, so much so that many varietals such as Falanghina, Montepulciano and Aglianico are also found in the vineyards of Molise. In this case, our varietals at Tenimenti Grieco are characterized by their minerality, their high minerality, and the sapidity brought about by the winds from the Adriatic coast. Our wines are varietal wines in almost all cases. We wanted to keep their soul pure and intact, and in most cases they are aged in still and keep the crus separate. Just one final anecdote before I go back to the two wines that you're tasting tonight, just to tell you about the sapidity, minerality, and acidity that come from our terroir. Our winemaker, Concetta, in one of the first harvests, noticed in the rows of vines that the berries were completely covered by a white film. She initially was worried and then understood that it was salt, marine salt, salt spray. Okay, the two ones that we are presenting, which are glass 4 and 6. The white is the Falanghina of Molise, and the first red, which is the Tintiglia of Molise, the indigenous grape varietal. Irene is illustrating. Okay.
Ce l'abbiamo anche qui. Sono questo e questo qui.
Exactly. So the first wine that I'm going to discuss is this Falanghina 2021, 100% Falanghina. It's a varietal wine, as I announced. And this is a part of our top selection called Le Tremiti, called like that because our best are grown on the sea and the Tremiti Islands. The picture I showed to you. It is obviously a wine that is warm, but it keeps, it maintains its acidity, its sapidity, and its minerality, characterize it thoroughly. Of course, we handpick the grapes, and we only select the best bunches. And the harvest tends to occur pretty late, to allow the berries to reach perfect maturity. Okay, I don't know if you want me to stay here until everybody has tasted the white wine, the Falanghina, or if you want me to provide indications about the Tintilla as well. Tintilla is the first red in your flight. Here it is. 200 metri, 200 meters. 200 meters is the minimum elevation level at which a Tintilla can be planted, a Tintilla DOCG wine. There are 15 producers who make a Tintilla, and when the rule book was approved, all the producers that were growing Tintilia below meters above sea level no longer associated that designation with the wine, and therefore it's no longer on the labels. In this case, Tintilia is the only indigenous of Molise, and it's one of the 4 DOCs like Biferno. And in this case, one of the characteristics that immediately catch the eye in this wine is, the characteristic of this wine that you detect on the nose is the spice. And very often you walk in the winery, when you are walking around in the winery, especially during the harvest season, you detect these black pepper notes together with red fruit, cherries, marasca cherries, and also because of the aging is in still it is very fresh. It's and fascinating and vibrant wine. It's a sexy wine, and it's one of our bestsellers, the Tintiglia. It's a gem, a jewel of the crown in Italy, and we're anxious to make it known globally. And we are very happy about this opportunity. Thank you for providing this Tintiglia, because it's really a special wine. Thank you very much. We'll continue with
buona serata, grazie mille per tutto.
Thank you and goodbye.
Ciao Irene.
Bye, Irene.
Allora, quindi ritorniamo ai calici.
So back to our glasses. Number 4 was the Falanghina. On the nose, you can immediately recognize the mineral notes that are characteristic of this wine. This is the very first thing that you detect in the glass. It's a very, very prominent. And then you taste it. You will notice that it will leave like a film on the palate, a salty film on the palate. And that is because the vineyards overlook the sea and are distant from the Tremiti Islands. Although there is another white, just not to forget about what Irene said, we might skip the next white and move to glass number 6, the first red. This is the black peppercorns, characteristic in this very young wine, ready for drinking. That is very juvenile, but it's very delicate. The red fruit are echoed from the nose to the palate. They're very gentle and very refined. You can really tell there's a feminine touch in here, as Irene said. It's a velvety wine. So fresh wine, they are vinified in stainless steel, and they vinify local varietals, local to Molise. The next sample is from Sicily. This is a dry Zibbo, a still wine. So generally we know this in its sweet variation, and we'll have a glass of the sweet version at the end. It's the same winery that produces this Zibbo, still and dry. It's 80% Zibbo, and the remaining 20% is indigenous Sicilian grapes. I'm talking about Nuta Prosit, Alzine, Pantelleria. Sorry, I had you taste the Tintiglia before the light. So again, 80% the remaining 20% proportion is indigenous white grapes. Non-sweet Zibbo, very aromatic on the nose, immediately tell. From, unlike the Falanghina, this is very sinful, floral, with fresh flowers up front. And then you also have very sweet notes of ripe fruit, like apricots, for instance, or peaches.
Andiamo anche ad assaggiarlo.
Okay, we're going to taste it.
E sentiamo per secco, magari ci sarebbe
And it's dry. You'd have expected some perhaps fizziness or sweetness, but this is a dry wine, completely dry, made from Zebibo grapes. On the label, you will not find the name of Tenute Prosit, because Tenute Prosit is a bigger company that takes care of wine capers, other local products, and so the let's say the holding is Tenute Prosit, but then the name on the label is different. The same winery, Telleria, is the same as the last wine, because they last, and we won't taste it because it's 100% sweet. We can't just kill the wines and go to the Zebibo, the sweet Zebibo, directly. So introduce the reds. We have Terre di Balbia in Calabria. This time we're ready for Giuseppe. If he's online, I will be tasting a Magliocco di Calabria. The name of the wine is Fervore, and Giuseppe will introduce the wine. Here's Giuseppe. Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us and for being here. Our winery at the north of Calabria, which is the toe of the hill that Italy is. We are north and in the center of Calabria, so we are in between the two seas, the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Ionian Sea. We are in a medieval town, and the name Terre di Balbia is connected to the town, which in the days of the was called Balbium. Pliny the Elder in 60 AD mentioned the name of Vinum, our varietal. Our winery is a small one. We have 2 hectares that we own, and our production is limited to 25 to 30,000 bottles every year. The wine is Fervore, which is made from an indigenous grape from our region, and specifically the area where we are based. It's the Magliocco, which is the most important varietal in this area. This grape variety is rich in tannins, and so the wines made from this varietal are age-worthy. We produce 15,000 bottles of this wine, and that accounts for most of our production. We vinify it as a pure varietal wine, and as you can notice on the back label, we use this information to write it's made from only Magliocco grapes. Because actually you could write it's Magliocco on the label if you had at least 5% of Magliocco grapes, and the rest, the balance would be other grape varieties. Because we identify with this area and this varietal, we prefer to use this Magliocco as our flagship. We only vinify the grapes that we produce. So we are certified certified organic, sorry, and our wine Fervore becomes releasable 5 years after the harvest, because this is a very hard grape to handle. So we need to vinify it in a way and age it in a way that the tannins will become more subdued. And it also spends some time in oak to favor micro-oxygenation in order to soften the tannins. And then it's another 4 years in the bottles which are needed to further smooth out the edges of the tannins. The latest vintage to be released is 2017, which is the one tasting. This wine, although we are in a geography, this wine generally has low ABVs. 17 was a very hot year, and so the wine reached 13% ABV, but actually the norm is more around 12.5. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I'm checking on the label. This is a 2017, 13% alcohol by volume, unless you have questions for Giuseppe.
Ok, Giuseppe, allora grazie mille per l'introduzione della tua
I'll say goodbye and thank you for using your company and participating. We're now going to focus on your glass.
Perfetto. Allora, vedo che qualcuno già si era approcciato al caldo.
I see a few people have already tasted the wine. As Giuseppe has announced, this is a very tannic wine. You get the spice immediately on the nose and the oak. It's a wine that when you taste it, it reveals its a great structure, the intensity, the thick tannins. It's a wine that certainly lends itself to a very prolonged aging in your cellars after taking a lot of aging in the wineries. The tannins are very astringent. It dries up your gums. Important one, prominent one that should be paired with very important dishes like meat stews and roasted meat that would compensate for the lack of salivation because of the astringency. A wonderful expression of Calabrian wine. As Giuseppe mentioned, it's made from Magliocco grapes. Giuseppe was very keen on specifying this because the rule book would allow to introduce other local grapes, but in this case it's only 100% Magliocco. Very interesting, very well. Let's continue with our last red. Cantine Duca della Cornia. We have a Divina Villa, which is a Trasimeno Gamay. This is a wine made in Umbria, in the area of Lake Trasimeno, on the Umbrian side. This is a wine made regionally, Gamay Trasimeno, which is available in this area. Divina Villa is the name of the wine, and there should be someone from the winery online. Here we are. So please introduce your wine. Good evening. Good evening to everyone. Let me describe the winery briefly and the wines that we are going to taste. Actually, we only have Divina Villa, not two wines, it's just one wine. Okay, Divina is the wine that really characterizes our range. I think you're tasting 2021, so the latest vintage. It spends 1 year in large oak and then a year of cellaring. This is a DOC wine. Again, the Trasimeno Gamay DOC. Our winery was established by the mid-20th century. We own 200 hectares of vineyard on the hills south of Lake Trasimeno. We are based at Castiglione del Lago, but we have vineyards in the municipality of Panicale and on the southern hills of Lake Trasimeno. Trasimeno Gamay is one that you're going to taste. You'll discuss the sensory analysis there, while I would like to point to its history. It is cultivated only around the lake and in the area of the estate of the Duke della Cornia. The cultivation started when the Duke of La Cornia married the daughter of the King of Spain. So it was with her that several varietals were taken to this area and planted here, including not just Gamay, but Garnache or Grenache or Garnacha. These are very small areas, but that are very representative of our production. This has become indigenous grape. It has become in the area for 400 years now. I think that could be enough for the moment. And in terms of the sensory characteristics, that's what you're going to do, I imagine. Yes, indeed. So what you said was very important, beginning with the origin of the varietal that was imported 4 centuries ago from Spain. And it was planted here by the Duke della Cornia, which is also the name of the winery. And so it's characterized as an indigenous varietal. It has names, Garnacha and Milano now of Sardinia, but it has its own characteristics in this area. It is known as Trasimeno Gamay DOC, DOC. And unless, there's a question. I see a question, so I can't ask you to leave. So, what price point, Enrica? It's 8.8 euros ex winery. Okay, 8.50 euros ex works, ex winery. So you could shop at the winery, so that would be a good opportunity to visit the lake as well. Unless there are any other questions, thank you very much. And let's move on to the glass. Thank you. So what do you think about this very regional wine? I see you're all curious. I see you are all with your noses in the glass. So the color is pretty light. The nose is very delicate, with herbaceous and balsamic hints, and also hints of red fruit. To the palate, it's very delicate. Have you tasted it yet? Well, smooth tannins. It's a wine that should be drunk when young. It's ready now, and it is good to many pairings. It would work well on many pairings. And also, it has balsamic notes, and it releases some very delicate red fruit notes. This is very special to this area, this varietal in this area. Any other questions about this wine? Every now and then I look at the back of the room because there might be questions from Hugh, because we're dealing with very special varietals. Did you know that we had these varietals in Italy, or is this a discovery as announced? Okay, I suggest that you drink some water before we move on from the wines to the passito. As I had announced previously, it's also part of Nute Prosit. The wine's name is Sentivento, Feel the Wind, literally translated. It is in reference to the windy Isle of Pantelleria. So the training method is the Alberello Pantesco. It's been part of the UNESCO World Heritage List because it's a very special training method. It's an alberello that is very short with 2 branches very close to the ground that is planted in a bowl-shaped hole in the ground. Then the alberello is known as alberello pantesco, which is a special form, very special shape of alberello. There are many different types of alberello. This is very special to Pantelleria. It is done for 2 reasons. Because of the first place, because the vines need to be kept low to avoid the gusts of wind that are very high, and then to avoid the daytime nighttime differential. And because it is very close to the ground, the temperature remains warmer between day and night. The grapes are then harvested and left on straw mats for 3 to 4 weeks. The drying process occurs naturally. The island is windy, so there is no risk that the grapes will start to rot. And at some point it's dry, and you have 150 grams of residual sugar, so it's clearly sweet. And in this case, this is Zebibo, 100% Zebibo, with hints of dried apricots, dates, nuts, orange jam, with citrus note, and also figs, dates, candied fruit. So the typical passito that one would expect. 100% Zebibo. It's an aromatic grape that is very when made into a passito, which is a special product of Pantelleria. The name is again Sentivento. Let's taste it. You immediately the sweetness, 150 grams per liter of residual sugar is very easily detectable. In terms of pairings, it goes well with small pastries, shortbreads, jams, and desserts in general, but we can serve it chilled to pair it with cheeses in the French style. It would work well with cheeses, marbled cheeses, and aged cheeses in general. So it's a very nice example of the passito di Pantelleria. Now, with the last glass, we've finished the night, and I'm still here to answer 2 more questions if there are any from Houston. No problems, Houston? Do you have problems, Houston? No. Hello, hi. So, connected to Houston. I don't know if you have questions on your side or here from the room in Milan. Anything else you'd like to learn about these wines? Well, you look happy with what you've heard. So good evening to you all, and see you soon. The wines are all lined up here in case you want to take a second look. Io voglio la mano.